Chapter 1. Desperation Has a Price. Zaria Nyambura sat on the cracked concrete steps outside the hospital's staff exit, the heat of the Dubai night pressing against her skin like a suffocating blanket. The city lights blurred around her as she stared down at her phone screen, her mother's medical bill flashing like a neon curse. $78,412. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled through the message again, as if reading it over and over would somehow make the number shrink. It didn't. Her breath hitched. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. Not with her mother back in Nairobi fighting for her life, connected to machines Zaria could no longer afford. The hospital had already given them an ultimatum: pay or be transferred to the public ward. And the public ward, Zaria knew, was a death sentence for a woman with advanced kidney failure. Her nursing job barely covered her rent in the tiny shared flat she lived in. She worked 16-hour shifts, changed bedpans, held the hands of dying strangers, and still she was drowning. "Zaria?" came a soft voice behind her. She turned to see her colleague, Amira, stepping out in her white coat, her eyes filled with concern. "You okay?" Zaria nodded, then quickly looked away. "Fine, just needed air." Amira didn't believe her, but she didn't press. Instead, she reached into her bag and handed her a folded flyer. "I shouldn't even be showing you this, but I know you're struggling, and this might help." Zaria frowned and unfolded the paper. Elite surrogacy program. Up to $250,000 confidential. No contact required. All expenses covered. Strict screening. Medical procedures performed at private international fertility clinic. Her stomach twisted. "You can't be serious." Amira shrugged. "It's legal. And fast." One of the girls did it last year. Paid off her whole family's debt and opened a salon in Sharjah. It's not for everyone. But you need money, Zaria. Fast. Zaria stared at the amount again. Up to $250,000. Her hands tightened on the flyer. Her mother was dying. Her baby sister was barely surviving. And she was running out of time. She looked up at the Dubai skyline, its towers reaching into a sky full of stars she couldn't touch. She had always been the good one. The obedient daughter. The caregiver. The sacrifice. Maybe it was time to cash in her pain. 3 days later, she sat in a sleek, cold waiting room at Luminary Fertility and Genetics, a clinic that looked more like a 5-star hotel than a medical facility. She was dressed modestly, clutching her small purse like it was a life vest. The receptionist spoke in soft, rehearsed tones. Zaria underwent every test imaginable: physical, psychological, even a background check. She signed a thick contract that made her stomach curl, all while a lawyer sat across from her, explaining it in calm, almost robotic English. No contact with the intended parents. No rights to the child. You will be financially compensated in full upon confirmation of pregnancy, and monthly payments of $10,000 will follow. A final sum of $100,000 will be deposited after successful delivery. Zaria swallowed hard. She couldn't even picture that kind of money. "Why no contact?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The lawyer smiled. "The couple prefers privacy. They're very high profile." Zaria wanted to ask more, but her mother's voice rang in her head. "You always take care of us, Zari. No one else will." So she nodded. "I agree." The procedure was fast. 2 weeks later, the blood test confirmed it. She was pregnant, with a child that wasn't hers, or so she thought. 2 months later, Zaria stood in front of the mirror, her hands pressed to the slight swell of her belly. She had never expected to feel anything for this baby. Not when it wasn't hers, not when it was supposed to be just a means to an end. But something was wrong. A few nights ago, she had received a cryptic call from the clinic's head nurse. Nervous, frantic. "We need to do a follow-up scan. Urgently." When she pressed for answers, they wouldn't say a word. Now, sitting alone in a private examination room, a new doctor came in. Not the usual one. He looked tense, like he'd rather be anywhere but here. "Miss Nyambura," he began, his voice tight. "There's been a situation." Zaria's heart dropped. "Is the baby okay?" "Yes, perfectly healthy," the doctor said. "But there was a mix-up." She stared at him, blank. "What kind of mix-up?" The doctor took a deep breath. "The embryo implanted in you. It doesn't belong to the couple who paid for the surrogacy. It belongs to another man entirely, a different client." Her pulse pounded in her ears. "How the hell?" "We're still investigating. But the father, he's a high-profile client. He's requested to meet you." "I don't want to meet him." Zaria stood, panic rising like bile. This was supposed to be anonymous. It was supposed to be over. The doctor didn't blink. He insists, and given the circumstances, he has legal rights. He's already arranged transportation for you. Zarya froze. Who is he? The doctor met her gaze. His name is Roman Vale. Chapter 2. Roman Vale, the broken billionaire. The house was too quiet. Roman Vale sat in the shadowed corner of his study, the heavy scent of old leather and whiskey clinging to the air like the ghosts that never left him. The silence was never just silence anymore. It was weighted, sharp, the kind that made his mind whisper things he didn't want to hear. He stared out the tall windows of his Dubai estate, watching the night eat the city lights in the distance. His legs, dead weight beneath the wheelchair, hadn't moved in almost 2 years, not since the accident, the betrayal. He ran his fingers slowly along the jagged scar on his thigh, just below where the sensation stopped, a reminder of how cruel love could be, of how it had nearly killed him. And now, somehow, fate had decided to mock him again. She's carrying your child. He still didn't know whether to laugh or destroy something. Roman, came a low voice behind him. He didn't turn. He didn't have to. It was Graham, his head of security, his shadow, the last man left who hadn't abandoned him. She agreed to meet, Graham said. She's here, waiting in the South Lounge. Roman didn't respond. He kept his eyes on the skyline. He didn't want a child, not really. Not after what Talia and Caleb did, his fiancée and his own brother, the woman he was supposed to marry and the man who shared his blood, the two people who conspired to take everything from him, his heart, his company, his ability to walk. And now the universe had handed him this woman, this stranger, carrying what should have been stored in cold, anonymous safety. He wasn't sure if it was a blessing or a curse. Bring her in, he said finally, his voice a rough echo of the man he used to be. She entered like a whisper, hesitant, cautious, like the room might devour her. Roman didn't move, only turned his head slightly to watch her. His first thought wasn't what he expected. She's beautiful. Not in the polished, red-lipped, high-heeled way women usually arrived around him. No, she was quiet beauty, effortless. Brown skin like burnished gold, wide eyes filled with both strength and terror, and a soft curve to her lips that made something sharp twist in his gut. She clutched her bag like it was armor. Miss Nyambura, he said slowly. Her head jerked up, surprised by his voice. She hadn't expected him to speak, maybe hadn't expected him to look like this. Broken, bitter, bent in a wheelchair like a man half his age. Yes, she said softly, that's me. He studied her. She didn't flinch under his gaze. That earned her a sliver of respect. Sit, she obeyed, placing her bag on her lap. Her fingers trembled. You know who I am? He asked. I know your name, that's all they told me. Roman narrowed his eyes. That's all you need to know. She lifted her chin, her voice shaky but firm. Then why am I here? Roman leaned back, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. Because you're carrying something that belongs to me, and I don't like leaving what's mine in someone else's hands. A beat of silence. Zarya's lips parted slightly. I didn't ask for this. And yet, Roman said with a dark smile, here we are. She glanced at his legs, quickly looked away. I didn't mean to offend. You didn't. Everyone looks. He wheeled himself a little closer. She stiffened. The scent of her hit him. Jasmine, maybe, and something else that was uniquely hers. I don't want your money, Mr. Vale, she said suddenly. I just want to do what I signed up for. Deliver the baby and walk away. Roman's jaw flexed. Walk away. That word again. Everyone walked away, except her, and she didn't even know it yet. I don't think you understand, he said quietly. This child is not just blood. It's survival. It's legacy. It's the one thing in this world I have left that hasn't been tainted by betrayal. Her brow creased. And you expect me to? What? Stay here? Let you control the rest of my life because of a clinic's mistake? No, Roman said coldly. I expect you to stay because it's safer. Zarya's brows rose in disbelief. Safer? From what? He paused, and then with deliberate slowness, Roman wheeled closer until they were just a breath apart. From the people who tried to kill me, the same people who would do anything to keep this child from being born, including coming after you. Her breath caught. There it was, the real reason. The real danger. She didn't speak for a long moment, and then, You're serious. I don't joke. Why would they care? She asked. It's just a child. Roman's voice turned to steel. Because my brother and my ex-fiancé are still fighting over my company. My name, my power, and this child, this baby threatens all of it. Zarya stood, panic on her face. No, I can't be part of this. I just wanted to help my mother. I didn't sign up for. You did, he interrupted. The moment they put my child inside you, he let that sink in. Then, softer. I'm not asking you to stay forever. Just until the birth. You'll be protected. Paid. Untouched if you prefer. Her lips parted. Untouched? Roman's eyes darkened. I may be crippled, Miss Nyambura, but I'm not dead. If you were mine in any other way, you'd know the difference. Heat flushed across her cheeks. He saw it, felt something unfamiliar stir in his chest. Possession. Dangerous. Unwelcome. But there. She turned away. I'll think about it. Roman rolled back. You don't have much time. She looked over her shoulder, a quiet war behind her eyes. Neither of them said what they both felt in that moment. That something had already shifted between them. Later that night, Roman sat alone in the dark again, staring at the ultrasound image his team had stolen from the clinic, a grainy shape, so small, but alive, real, his and hers. He closed his eyes. Talia had once promised him children, a future, everything. And in the end, she had taken it all with one lie and one whisper into his brother's ear. But Zaria wasn't Talia. She didn't look at him with pity. She looked at him with fire. And maybe, just maybe, she was strong enough to survive this twisted game fate had dropped them into. Back in her hotel room, Zaria pressed her hand over her stomach and whispered to herself in the dark, "Who the hell are you, Roman Vale?" She had no idea that he was asking the same thing. Not about himself, but about her. Chapter 3. Unwanted Sanctuary. The walls were too white, too perfect. Zaria sat in the massive guest suite of Roman Vale's estate, surrounded by luxury that felt more like a prison. Thick curtains filtered the Dubai sunlight, casting gold over the marble floors, designer furniture, and towering vases that probably cost more than her mother's entire treatment plan. She didn't belong here, not in this world of silk robes, security cameras, and silent staff who bowed and avoided eye contact. But more than anything, she didn't belong under the roof of the man who stared at her like she was both a threat and a temptation. She pressed her hand to her growing belly. It was barely visible now, a small curve she could still hide beneath loose clothes. But the weight of it was getting heavier every day. And so was the truth. She was carrying his child. Not a couple's child. Not a stranger's. His. Roman Vale's. The cold, brooding billionaire who barely looked alive and yet radiated the kind of dominance that made her skin itch with awareness. It had been 3 days since she moved into his estate. 3 days of tension, silence, observation. She hadn't seen him since that first meeting. But she could feel him. Watching, waiting. Trapped in this fortress with security men stationed outside her door, she was safe from the outside world. But not from him. That evening, a soft knock on her door interrupted her spiral of thoughts. "Come in," she called, her voice wary. A woman stepped in, tall, elegant, with tight black curls swept into a knot and eyes that had seen too much. "I'm Dr. Imani. I'll be overseeing your prenatal care moving forward," she said, her voice calm and professional. "Mr. Vale asked that I check in on you personally." Zaria stiffened at the mention of his name. Of course he did. Dr. Imani raised a brow but said nothing. She opened her case and began examining her. Blood pressure, heart rate, a portable Doppler for the baby's heartbeat. Zaria held her breath until the soft, rhythmic thump, thump, thump filled the air. It hit her in the chest like a lightning bolt. That sound, that life. She didn't realize she was crying until the doctor gently handed her a tissue. "First time hearing it?" she asked. Zaria nodded, unable to speak. Her hand stayed over her belly. Dr. Imani watched her for a moment. "You care already, that's good." "I wasn't supposed to," Zaria whispered. Dr. Imani smiled gently. "Nothing about this is ever what we expect." Later that night, Zaria found herself wandering the halls of the estate. She couldn't sleep. The silence was too loud. She walked past a library, a gallery, even a private gym. The estate was monstrous, opulent, but cold, until she found him, Roman, in the West Conservatory, sitting in front of a piano. Zaria froze. She hadn't expected to find him in such a vulnerable position. He was alone, the room dim, his fingers ghosting over the keys though no sound came. He wasn't playing, just touching. She took a step back, trying to leave unnoticed, but his voice stopped her. "You're not very good at sneaking." Her heart jumped. He didn't turn, didn't even look at her. "You don't sleep?" she asked softly, stepping closer. "I do, occasionally, when the nightmares lose interest." The answer wasn't what she expected. Zaria hesitated, then crossed the room and stood near the piano. You play? I used to, he said. Before, she didn't have to ask what before meant. It was obvious in the bitterness of his tone. Why did you really bring me here? She asked quietly. Was it just safety or control? Roman looked up at her finally, his eyes unreadable. Both, he admitted. But mostly I wanted to see you. Zaria's breath caught. Why? Because I needed to know if you were strong enough. For what? He leaned forward in his chair. To survive me. Zaria's spine stiffened. I'm not scared of you, Roman. His lips curved in a dark, haunting smile. You should be. She met his gaze, held it. No, she said. I think you're the one who's scared. Silence. Then he laughed, low and humorless. Of what? Zaria stepped closer. Of feeling anything, of getting close again. Of this child. His expression turned cold. You don't know me, he said sharply. No, she agreed, but I'm not blind either. They stared at each other, fire and ice. She turned to leave, but his next words stopped her in her tracks. Do you know why I never had children? Zaria looked over her shoulder. Roman's jaw tightened. Because I knew the world I live in would devour them, just like it devoured me. Zaria's voice softened. Then maybe this baby is your second chance. His eyes darkened. There are no second chances for people like me. Then make one, she whispered. For them. She walked away before he could answer, but he stared at the doorway long after she was gone. The next morning, the staff brought her breakfast, silver trays, fresh fruit, and fluffy omelets. She pushed the food around, appetite gone. Her thoughts were still with him. The haunted man in the conservatory. Later, Graham, Roman's security chief, knocked and told her, Boss wants to see you in the courtyard. It's safe, private. Zaria followed him. Roman was already waiting. A rare Dubai breeze rustled the leaves around him. He was in a charcoal shirt, sleeves rolled up, exposing forearms corded with strength. Even seated in his chair, he exuded power. Zaria stood opposite him. I wanted to make something clear, Roman said. You're not a prisoner here. You're free to go, if you choose. But if you stay, I protect you. I protect the child, no matter what. Zaria folded her arms. And what do you get? His eyes met hers. You, her breath caught. As the mother of my child, he clarified. As someone I need close. Someone I need to trust. And if I say no, then I won't stop you, he said, but I'll watch from a distance. And so will the people who want to see you disappear. Zaria's voice trembled. Why does it feel like you're threatening me and protecting me at the same time? Because I'm doing both. A beat of silence passed. Then, I'll stay, she said, but on my terms. Roman tilted his head. Which are? No controlling me, no cameras inside my room, and no talking to me like I'm a pawn. Roman studied her, then nodded once. Deal. They shook hands, and something electric passed between them. Unspoken. Dangerous. Real. That night, Zaria sat by her bedroom window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. She could feel it happening, the shift. She came here to Chapter 4. Zaria couldn't breathe. Not because of the heat. The estate was cooled to perfection, every room a carefully curated escape from the blazing Dubai sun. No, her breath caught because of the man who stood only a few feet from her, a glass of dark whiskey in his hand and eyes that seemed to see through every lie she told herself. Roman Vale. Cold. Paralyzed. Broken. But never weak. He hadn't spoken yet. They were in the private drawing room, a place neither of them had shared before, and the silence between them was as thick as tension. She stood across from him, arms crossed, trying to act unaffected. But the storm inside her wouldn't be ignored. Why did you really bring me here? She asked again. Roman took a slow sip of his drink before answering, his gaze never leaving hers. You think I haven't already told you? I think you've told me half of it. He gave a slow, humorless smile. And what makes you think you deserve the whole story? Zaria's temper flickered. I'm carrying your child. I didn't ask for this. I didn't plan this. And now I'm stuck in a fortress being shadowed by guards while the father of this baby plays king behind glass walls. Roman's smile faded. You're not stuck, Zaria. You're protected. There's a difference. She took a step toward him. Then treat me like someone who matters, not just a vessel. The glass in his hand lowered, and for the first time his voice lost all edge. You do matter. Her heart jumped at the quiet sincerity of it. But before she could reply, Roman turned toward the window, staring into the fading dusk. I'm not good at people anymore, he admitted. Zaria blinked. He didn't speak like a billionaire. He spoke like a man who had lost everything and was still bleeding beneath the tailored shirts and locked gates. I didn't bring you here just for control, he said. I brought you here because I can't lose this child, not again. Zaria's voice softened. What do you mean again? He was silent for a long moment. Then, Talia, my ex, she was pregnant, or so I thought. His jaw clenched. She used it to keep me close, lied, said she miscarried. But there was never a baby, just leverage. Zaria's throat tightened. That's cruel. That's power, Roman muttered. And I gave her mine. He turned back to her, eyes dark. This time I won't lose. I won't be fooled. And I won't risk this child. Zaria stepped closer without meaning to, her voice barely a whisper. This baby is real. I feel it. Every day. Their eyes locked. Something passed between them. Something unspoken but undeniable. A connection neither wanted but couldn't deny. Over the next few days, the arrangement settled into something dangerous. An uneasy rhythm. Zaria went to daily health checks with Dr. Imani. She took walks through the garden, always followed by discreet security. And Roman watched. Not always directly, but he was everywhere. He sent the kitchen instructions about what she should and shouldn't eat. He had a custom maternity pillow delivered to her room. He installed a piano in the east wing, the one she preferred, without ever mentioning he knew she liked to sit there. She caught him watching her once from a distance while she was reading. His expression was unreadable, but his gaze felt like fire. One afternoon, Zaria stood in the sunroom, her fingers brushing over a baby name book left on a table. She hadn't brought it. She knew exactly who had. Roman entered quietly, his wheels soft over the marble. You picked a name yet? He asked, voice low. Zaria looked at him. You assume I'll get to name the baby? You're carrying the child, he said. You have some say, she stared at him. Just some? Roman rolled closer slowly. Names are power. In my family, they're legacy. Zaria tilted her head. So is love. That made him pause. He said nothing. Zaria pressed. Do you think this baby will change you? Roman looked her straight in the eye. I hope not. The honesty hit her like a slap. But then he added, softer. Because change means vulnerability, and I've already lost too much. Zaria's voice trembled. Then why let me in? His reply was immediate. Because I didn't have a choice. Silence fell again. And that's when she realized it. He didn't want her close, but he couldn't keep her away. That night, Zaria dreamed of fire and glass. She woke gasping, hand over her stomach, sweat dripping down her spine. A knock came at her door seconds later. It was Roman. She didn't ask how he knew. Maybe the security cameras, maybe some unseen instinct. He stared at her in the doorway, shirt unbuttoned at the top. His hair tousled in a way that made her breath catch. You okay? He asked. She nodded. Just a nightmare. He didn't move. Want to talk? No. Still, he didn't leave. Zaria hesitated, then opened the door wider. He wheeled in slowly, like entering a holy place he didn't deserve. They sat in silence for a while, her on the bed, him in the chair beside it. Finally, she spoke. Do you believe in second chances? Roman stared into the shadows. I believe in survival. That's about it, Zaria whispered. Then maybe you haven't lived enough. He looked at her. Really looked. Then, without meaning to, his hand reached forward, hesitant, unsure, and pressed lightly against the curve of her belly. Her breath caught. It was the first time he touched her. The contact was brief, but it was everything. When he finally left her room that night, neither of them spoke of what it meant. But both knew something had changed. The lines were no longer clear. And the danger wasn't just outside the walls anymore. It was between them now, a pull neither of them wanted and couldn't escape. Chapter 5. The Cost of Care and the Price of Hearts. Back in Nairobi, the quiet beeping of hospital monitors was the only sound keeping rhythm in the dimly lit ward. Martha Nyambura, Zaria's mother, lay in bed with translucent skin and hollowed cheeks. The dialysis machine hummed steadily beside her, filtering her blood because her kidneys no longer could. Though her body had weakened over the last few months, her spirit hadn't. Not entirely. She clutched a worn photograph of Zaria to her chest, the one from her graduation as a nurse. She couldn't reach her daughter anymore, not in the usual ways. Zaria had promised to call every evening, but the last few days had been quiet. No video calls, only short messages. Doing okay, treatment going well. Don't worry, I love you. Martha knew her daughter well, and that silence spoke volumes. Something had changed, but she didn't have the strength to worry aloud. Not when her second chance at life, had been paid for by something she didn't yet understand. The nurse walked in with a gentle smile. We're proceeding with the transplant evaluation, Mama. The hospital said the down payment was cleared. Everything's moving fast now. Martha nodded slowly, blinking away the sting of grateful tears. She didn't know who had paid it. Zaria had told her she found a sponsor. But a part of her heart feared it wasn't that simple. Nothing involving that kind of money ever was. Thousands of miles away in Dubai, Zaria stood on the balcony of Roman's estate, the desert night brushing her skin with warm air and tension she couldn't shake. Her phone was pressed to her ear, the call to the Kenyan hospital just ending. Her mother's surgery prep was underway. The specialist from India was flying in. Everything was covered, even a private nurse, paid in full. She had argued with Roman about it just hours ago. "You went behind my back," Shed said, slamming the hospital paperwork onto his desk. Roman hadn't even blinked. "You said she needed help. I didn't ask you to drop $50,000 like you were buying a new watch. I don't wear watches," she had nearly screamed. "I needed to do this on my own," had been like carved stone. "You're not alone anymore." Zaria had flinched at that, because the words scared her more than his silence ever could. Later that evening, Roman found her still on the balcony, her silhouette framed by the moonlight, arms wrapped tightly around herself. He didn't say anything at first. He just wheeled up beside her and sat in silence. She didn't look at him. "I should be happy," she said softly. "My mother's finally getting what she needs, a chance to live, but it feels like I've sold pieces of myself to make it happen." Roman's jaw tightened. "You didn't sell yourself, Zaria. You sacrificed." She turned to him, eyes burning. "Same difference." "No, it's not." He met her gaze. "Selling yourself is surrendering. Sacrificing is surviving. There's strength in it." Her lips trembled, but she said nothing. Then he added, voice lower, "I know what it feels like to give everything for someone who never deserved it, and to be left with nothing but silence." Zaria's heart cracked. She saw it then, not the billionaire, not the damaged man in a wheelchair, but just him, someone who had been gutted by love and left behind. She reached out and touched his hand. It wasn't romantic, it wasn't sexual, it was human, and Roman didn't pull away. In the following days, their connection grew in small, quiet ways. Zaria began helping Roman with his physiotherapy sessions, something he had previously refused. At first, he resisted, scowling at the idea of being vulnerable in front of her. But she didn't coddle him. She didn't baby him. She challenged him. Again, she said one morning as he attempted to shift his weight forward from the chair, bracing on the bars in his private therapy room. Sweat clung to his temples, and rage flickered in his eyes. "It's not working. It's not supposed to work in one day," she replied. "It's supposed to hurt. You have to fight for it," he growled under his breath. "Easy for you to say when you're not the one trapped." Zaria leaned forward, hand on his chest, steady but firm. "You're not trapped, Roman. You're just scared to want more than survival." Their eyes met, and something simmered between them. By the time he sat back, exhausted and trembling, her hands lingered a little too long on his shoulders. Neither of them said anything about it, but that night, Zaria couldn't sleep, and Roman didn't drink. One evening, she was in the library when he surprised her with something small, a hand-carved wooden giraffe. She blinked, confused. "What's this?" "It's from a Kenyan art gallery. One of the few my mother used to collect from when she was alive." Zaria's fingers traced the tiny details. "You thought of my home?" Roman's voice was rough. "I think about everything that matters to me." The room went still. Zaria placed the giraffe on the table between them. "You can't say things like that." "Why not?" "Because I'm already carrying your child. I don't need to carry your guilt too." Roman stared at her, something dangerous flickering in his eyes. "Is that all you think this is?" "Guilt?" Zaria hesitated. "Isn't it?" He stood, not fully, but with effort, bracing himself on the cane he rarely used. His muscles strained, his jaw clenched in pain, but his pride wouldn't let him show weakness. "I want you to stay," he said quietly. She froze. "Until the baby is born?" His voice dropped. "I mean, after." The silence between them was louder than any storm. Zaria backed up slowly, heart thudding in her chest. "Don't make promises, Roman, especially not when you don't know if you'll mean them tomorrow." "I don't make promises," he said, voice like steel. "But I don't ask twice either." Zaria ran that night, not away, just outside, into the garden, under the stars that didn't judge or expect or burn. Her emotions were a tangle of hope, fear, and something she couldn't yet name. But deep down, she knew something had shifted again, not just in him, but in herself. Because she was starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, she didn't want to leave. Chapter 6. The message came at 2:13 a.m. Zaria's phone buzzed with a local Kenyan number she didn't recognize. Sleep faded instantly as she swiped to answer. Hello? A pause. Then, Miss Zaria? This is Nurse Elsie from Nairobi General, your mother. She's stable. The transplant went well. She's recovering beautifully. Zaria sat upright in bed, her eyes flooding with tears. Are you serious? She whispered. She's sleeping now, but the doctor says everything looks strong. The donor kidney took immediately. Zaria clutched the blanket with both hands. Thank you. Thank you so much. She ended the call with trembling fingers. Her mother was okay, alive, healing. Zaria exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. And then slowly her mind turned toward the one person who had made it happen, Roman. She found him in the therapy room the next morning, sweat clinging to his shirt as he gritted his teeth, forcing himself to stand, supported by parallel bars and Dr. Imani's encouragement. Zaria didn't interrupt, she just watched. And for the first time, she didn't see a man who had lost everything. She saw a man fighting, for his body, for his life, for her. He didn't notice her until had collapsed back into the wheelchair, panting. I can feel pain in the muscles now, he said through clenched teeth. That's new. Zaria walked toward him, knelt beside the chair, and reached for his hand. My mother made it, she whispered. The surgery worked. Roman froze, and then slowly his fingers tightened around hers. Good, he said quietly. She deserved to live. You gave her that chance. He didn't answer, but he didn't pull away. Later that afternoon, Zaria sat in her suite with her tablet open. She stared at the email glowing on the screen. Zaria Nyambura, we regret to inform you that due to prolonged absence and failure to comply with international contract timelines, your nursing position at Al Noor Hospital has been formally terminated. She stared at the words. Her job, the one she'd sacrificed for, sweated for, built her life around, was gone. She had left without formal leave, gone off-grid, broken confidentiality. They were within their rights. Still, her throat burned as she shut the screen. She didn't cry. She just sat in silence until Roman appeared in the doorway. I heard. She didn't ask how. He always knew. I worked so hard for that, she said, voice cracking. I was trying to build something real, something mine. Roman crossed the room slowly, cane in one hand, a hard glint in his eyes. Then, well, build something better, Zaria scoffed. You can't just throw money at this. No, he said, but I can offer you something more permanent. A position, running a clinic, under your name, your conditions. She looked at him, stunned. Why would you do that? Because you deserve more than survival, he said. And I'm not going to let you keep losing everything for me. But fate wasn't done testing them. 3 nights later, Roman's estate security was breached. Zaria woke to alarms screaming and armed guards flooding the halls. Graham found her within seconds, rushed her into a hidden safe room beneath the east wing. Stay here. Don't open the door for anyone but Roman or me. What happened? She demanded. Attempted infiltration. 1 man inside the perimeter. We think it was Caleb's hired hand. Roman's brother. Her stomach twisted. But why now? Graham's expression darkened. Because they found out the truth, that you're carrying the air, and Roman's recovering faster than they expected. Zaria's blood ran cold. They were coming for the baby, she whispered. Yes. It took 4 hours for Roman to return to her, blood on his shirt, eyes black with rage. Zaria reached for him immediately. Are you hurt? No, but they got close, too close. What do we do now? He met her gaze. We fight back. The next day, Roman doubled the security detail. All gates were reinforced, and Zaria was assigned a private bodyguard. Dr. Imani moved into the estate full-time. Roman didn't sleep for 72 hours. And when he finally did, it was in a chair beside Zaria's bed, cane by his side, gun on the nightstand. He never touched her. But he never left. As days passed, the estate became a war zone of strategy and tension. Roman's enemies were watching, waiting. Caleb was bidding for control of Vale International, using Roman's absence as leverage. Talia was leaking lies to the press about Roman's mental health. But none of that compared to what Roman feared most. Losing Zaria. Then came the day everything changed. Roman stood on his own, no cane, no bars, just him and her. Zaria rushed toward him, laughing through tears. You're doing it. Roman grabbed her waist, steadying himself, and pulled her flush against him. You're the reason I can stand, he said. You're the reason I want to. Their faces were too close, their breaths mingled. And finally, he kissed her. Slow, devouring, raw. It wasn't a kiss of lust, it was claiming. She kissed him back like she'd been waiting her whole life, because she had. Chapter 7. Roman had never liked crowds. Even before the accident, public appearances had felt like necessary power plays. Strategic, cold, calculated. But tonight, things were different. He was standing, unaided, and Zarya Nyambura was on his arm. She wore a simple black gown that hugged her figure gently, her rounded belly now unmistakable beneath the satin. Her hair was swept back, her skin glowing, and her eyes held that same unbreakable fire that had first drawn him in. The ballroom was packed with Dubai's elite, shareholders, politicians, rivals in tailored suits, and Roman Vale had just walked in with the woman the world had never seen before, and he was going to make sure they knew exactly who she was. Zarya squeezed his hand nervously. I don't like this, she whispered. Why now? Roman didn't take his eyes off the crowd. Because Caleb's been whispering lies about my condition, and Talia's been feeding the media stories about me losing control. It ends tonight. She swallowed hard. This world, it's nothing like mine. He finally looked at her. It is now. The speech was brief, but the room went still the moment Roman took the stage, Kane at his side standing tall. I want to address the rumors, he began. Yes, I was injured. Yes, I nearly lost everything. But I am not gone, and I am not weak. He paused, then glanced toward Zarya. There is someone here tonight who has given me reason to fight again, someone carrying my future in more ways than one. Murmurs broke out across the crowd. She is not just the mother of my child, he said, voice hardening. She is mine, and anyone who lays a hand on her lays a hand on me. Zarya's breath caught, and the world turned to stare. The headlines exploded the next morning. Roman Vale claims secret heir and mysterious woman. Vale walks again. Who is the woman who saved him? The unknown name set to become the queen of billions? Zarya didn't leave her room that day, not because of fear, but because she didn't know how to feel. Roman had branded her in front of the world, not with shame, not with secrecy, with honor, and it scared her more than anything else. That night, they were eating dinner in his private terrace suite when it happened. A bullet cracked through the air. Glass shattered. Roman reacted first, slamming her to the floor, shielding her body with his own. Gunshots rang out. Screams echoed down the halls. Graham's voice roared from the hallway. Get them out! Seconds later, Zarya was pulled into Roman's arms and rushed to the basement shelter. Who? She gasped as Roman's chest heaved. Who did this? His voice was pure steel. Caleb. He knows he's losing. He's trying to finish it. They were aiming for me, she whispered. Roman gritted his teeth. Then they'll die for it. 3 guards were shot, one seriously wounded, but none of them died. By sunrise, Roman had activated his full network: lawyers, private investigators, hackers, offshore assets. The attack had failed, but the message was clear. Zarya and the baby were no longer just collateral, they were the target. And then came the final blow. A package arrived that afternoon. No sender, no label. Inside, photos of Zarya, taken outside the hospital, in the estate, at the gala, every angle, every moment. Someone had been watching her for weeks. Roman's hands trembled as he flipped through the photos, rage building like a storm behind his eyes. But it was the last image that broke him. A close-up of Zarya sleeping. In their bed, the words written on the back chilled them both. She dies, or you lose everything. Hours later, Roman sat alone in his office, head in his hands, the photos scattered across the desk. Zarya entered quietly. She hadn't cried, not once, but her silence was deafening. They won't stop, she said. I know. So what now? Roman looked up, eyes bloodshot, face pale. I leave. Her stomach dropped. What? I need to draw them out, make them think you mean nothing, that I've given up on everything. If I vanish, they'll relax, and then I strike. You want me to stay here? Her voice cracked. Alone? You'll be protected, fortified, hidden in a different location. No one will find you. Zarya stepped back. So this is goodbye. No, Roman said, standing. This is war, and I'm not letting you fight it. She blinked back tears. I already am. They stood inches apart, grief and fire between them. Then he leaned in and kissed her forehead, whispering, You're everything I never thought I deserved, and everything I'm willing to kill for. Chapter 8. The new safe house was in the Omani Mountains, surrounded by nothing but stone, sand, and silence. Zaria stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, arms crossed, her growing belly cradled beneath her hands. A soft desert wind pushed through the narrow opening at the top, and for a second, she imagined it carrying a whisper from him. Roman. Gone. Vanished without a goodbye kiss. Without a final touch. Only a message delivered through Graham the morning after the threat. Don't look for me. Protect the child. Stay safe. I'll find you. She hadn't spoken to anyone for days after that, not even Graham. Not even Dr. Imani, who now lived with her, tending to the pregnancy and checking vitals twice daily. Zaria moved through the house like a ghost. Her job was gone. Her mother was recovering in Nairobi and unaware that her daughter was now hiding from assassins in another country. And the man she had fallen for, truly, fully, against her will, had disappeared to wage a silent war, without her. Some nights she woke screaming. Other nights she lay awake until morning, whispering to the unborn child inside her. Your father is not a monster, she said one night, eyes fixed on the stars. He's trying to save us. And sometimes just before dawn, she'd curl into the bed with his old hoodie clutched to her chest and whisper in Swahili, Nitarudi tu kama ukiniacha. I'll only return if you ever leave me. As if he could hear her from wherever he was, as if he would understand what that kind of promise meant. Meanwhile, Roman Vale was bleeding in a warehouse in Istanbul. The ambush hadn't gone as planned. He had tracked one of Caleb's smugglers, a man known for laundering weapons and secrets, but hadn't expected the ambush. They'd waited for him. 5 men, knives, not guns. They wanted it personal. Roman had held his own. Brutal, cold, deadly, but not untouched. Now, half-conscious, slumped against the rusted wall of a shipping container, he reached for his satellite phone with blood-streaked fingers. He dialed a number, only one. Zaria was in the kitchen when the burner phone rang. She nearly dropped the mug in her hand. Roman, a rasp on the other end. It's me. Tears flooded her eyes instantly. Where are you? Hurt. Bleeding. Coming back. Where? Home. And then the line cut. 2 days later, Graham walked into the mountain compound with Roman draped between 2 guards, half unconscious, stitched, bruised, and burning with fever. Zaria ran, sank to her knees beside him. Roman, talk to me. He opened one eye, voice hoarse. Didn't think I'd miss you this much. She punched his chest. You idiot. Then she kissed his cheek, then his jaw, then his lips. He winced, then smiled. Still carrying our little tyrant? Zaria laughed through tears. Kicking harder than ever, for the next 3 days she barely left his side. She fed him, bathed him, argued with him about moving too soon. He listened to none of it, but he held her hand every night before sleeping. Did you say something in Swahili to me? He asked one night, drowsy and slurring. Zaria froze, then leaned in close and whispered, Nitarudi tu kama ukiniasha. His lips curved. I didn't, she smiled. Then don't make me lie. By the end of the week, Roman was walking again, barely, but walking, and Zaria knew deep in her chest that he had come back not just to fight, but to stay. Chapter 9. The fire was back in Roman's blood. Even before his wounds fully healed, even before he could move without a wince, he began rebuilding his warpath. The warehouse ambush hadn't just broken skin, it had cracked open every dark piece of him that once swore never to feel again. He had tasted death, and found something more terrifying waiting on the other side. Love, not weakness, not softness, but power. Because dying wasn't what scared Roman anymore. Losing Zaria was. He sat with Graham in the stone-walled study of the mountain safe house, documents and photos scattered across the table. I want Caleb out of the boardroom, Roman said, voice low. Publicly, legally, forever. Graham nodded. We traced his funding to 3 offshore accounts, fraud, bribery, and 2 links to the Talia Foundation. Roman's mouth curled. So he funneled my ex's blood money through my own name. That's poetic. Graham leaned forward. Are you sure you want to confront him in person? Roman's knuckles whitened. He put a bounty on the mother of my child. I'm not sending a lawyer. Meanwhile, Zaria stood in the garden of the compound, watching the sun dip behind the cliffs. Her hands cradled her belly. The kicks had been strong all day, almost frantic. You miss him when he's gone too long, huh? She whispered softly. Then the phone buzzed in her robe pocket. It was a call from Nairobi. She answered quickly. Mama? Martha's voice was strong and light. My girl, I wanted to tell you first. The doctors just cleared me for travel, Zaria gasped. You mean? I can come see you, Zaria. I'm healthy enough. Tears streamed down her face. Roman walked out onto the patio just in time to hear her squeal with joy. She's coming, Zaria whispered through happy sobs. She's really coming. Roman froze and then slowly stepped forward, resting a hand on her belly. She should be here. For all of it. Zaria leaned her forehead against his. So should you. 48 hours later, Roman stood face to face with Caleb Vale for the first time in a year. The confrontation took place in the towering glass headquarters of Vale International. Roman arrived without warning, dressed in black, walking unaided, flanked by 2 elite security agents and a lawyer. Caleb choked on his whiskey when he saw him. You're supposed to be, Roman cut him off. Dead? Broken? Replaced? Caleb's jaw clenched. You abandoned this company. The board voted. Roman threw a folder on the table. That's what happens when they vote based on your bribes. You're done. One by one, Roman listed the charges: embezzlement, insider trading, conspiracy to commit fraud, and finally, attempted assassination. Caleb's face drained. You can't prove it. Roman leaned in. I don't need to. I just need you gone. 10 minutes later, Caleb was escorted from the building, screaming. Roman watched from the elevator, eyes hollow. It was over. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like war had simply paused. Back in Oman, Zaria woke that night to a sharp, pulling pain across her belly. At first, she brushed it off. Braxton Hicks, she told herself, just practice contractions. But then her legs buckled in the hallway. She screamed. Dr. Amani ran to her side in seconds. Lie her down. Call Roman now. Roman's phone rang in the boardroom. He answered on the first buzz. She's in labor, Graham said. Early, too early. Roman's heart stopped. I'm coming. The flight back was hell. Roman sat rigid in the private jet, blood pounding through his skull, hands shaking, not from fear, from helplessness, the kind he hadn't felt since the accident. Hold on, Zaria, he whispered to the dark sky. Just hold on. She was pale when he arrived, but awake, sweating, breathing through the pain. He rushed to her side and gripped her hand. I'm here. She blinked at him, dazed. You came back. Always, she laughed weakly through a cry of pain. This baby is dramatic, like you. He kissed her forehead. Good. That means it's strong. Hours passed, but the baby didn't come. The contractions slowed. The scare was just that, a scare. Doctor, Amani wiped her brow after the final monitor scan. False labor, but it was close. You need to rest, both of you. Roman stayed by Zaria's side, head buried against her stomach. And when she whispered, Nitarudi tu kama ukiniacha, he answered this time, Siwezi kuondoka, wiwe ni wangu, I can't leave, you're mine. When everyone else had gone quiet, Zaria touched the scar on Roman's thigh. Tell me, she said, what happened while you were gone? He hesitated. Then, slowly, he told her everything. The ambush, the torture, the sleepless nights hiding in safe houses, the burning fear that Shed be gone when he came back. She listened, and then kissed his chest. One hand on her belly, one hand over his heart. You didn't come back broken, she whispered. You came back, whole. And Roman Vale, billionaire, warrior, haunted man, finally let go of the pain. Because in Zaria's arms, he wasn't broken. He was reborn. Chapter 10. Zaria stood barefoot at the threshold of the compound, heart pounding as the black SUV pulled through the gates. It had been months since she had seen her mother's face in person. Months of hiding, fighting, surviving. She was no longer the same woman who left Nairobi behind, desperate and alone, and her mother would see that the second she stepped out. The car door opened, and there she was, Martha Nyambura, thinner, yes, but stronger than ever, her head wrapped in a bright red scarf, her eyes wet before a word was spoken. Zaria ran. They collided halfway. Mama, my girl. Their arms wrapped tight, and neither spoke for a long, long moment, only clutched each other in trembling silence. Then Martha pulled back, one hand gently sliding over Zaria's round belly. You're carrying strength, she said softly. Zaria nodded, tears falling. And love. Inside, Roman stood back, watching the reunion from the hallway. He didn't interrupt. He knew this moment belonged to them. But when Zaria turned and caught his eyes, her smile widened. She reached for him, and he came without hesitation. Mama, she said, leading her mother forward, this is Roman Vale. Martha studied him carefully. The man who had saved her life, who had changed her daughters. Roman, to his credit, bowed his head respectfully. Karibu, Martha said softly. Roman's voice was steady. Asante. I'm honored to finally meet the woman Zaria would cross worlds for. Martha smiled, then protect her. With everything. I already do. That night, Roman couldn't sleep. He sat in the garden under the stars, the soft hum of the desert wind brushing his skin. He was terrified of what came next. Not war, not enemies, but love. Unshakable, permanent. Zarya found him there just before dawn, barefoot in a robe, hair down around her shoulders, her hand pressed lightly to her side. "You're thinking too loud," she teased softly. He looked up at her, then slowly stood, still a little unsteady but strong. "I've been wanting to ask you something," he said, reaching into his pocket. Her breath hitched. Roman stepped forward and knelt. Not perfectly, not gracefully, but with everything. He pulled out a velvet box and opened it to reveal a ring unlike any Shed seen. A silver band with an engraved line of Swahili script, Daima na milele, forever and always. Zarya gasped. Roman's voice trembled. "You were never supposed to be mine, but I was always meant to be yours. Will you marry me?" She dropped to her knees with him, her hands shaking. "Yes," she breathed, kissing him before the word fully left her lips. 1,000,000 times yes. The next morning was peaceful. Too peaceful. Dr. Imani scheduled the final ultrasound. Martha began preparing a special Kenyan stew for the celebration dinner. Zarya danced in the kitchen, barefoot, humming, glowing. Roman watched from the doorway, in awe. "I don't deserve this," he murmured. Martha didn't look up from the pot. "That's not your decision to make, just don't waste it." But just before sunset, the peace shattered. Graham barged into the compound with urgency in his eyes. "We found her," he said. Roman stiffened. "Who?" "Talia. She's in Dubai. She has documents, fake DNA reports, forged paternity claims. She's planning to go public." Zuria's face went white. "She's trying to claim the baby as hers," Graham nodded grimly. "And she has the media waiting." Roman stepped forward, eyes burning. "This ends now." "No," Zuria said suddenly, stepping between them. "I'll end it." Everyone turned to her. She stood tall, her hands on her belly. "She tried to kill you, tried to erase me, and now she wants to take our child's identity. No, I want her to see exactly who she failed to break." Roman stared at her, stunned. In that moment, glowing, defiant, fearless, Zarya wasn't just the woman he loved. She was a warrior. Together, they flew to Dubai in secret. No press, no noise. Roman's legal team moved fast, confronting the media head-on with proof. Medical records, embryo transfer logs, statements from the clinic, security footage. Then Roman stepped in front of the cameras with Zarya on his arm and said 3 words. "She is mine." And when a reporter asked, "Are you marrying her out of obligation?" Roman looked straight into the lens and said, "No, I'm marrying her because I don't want to spend a single day on this earth without her." Talia was arrested that night for fraud, conspiracy, and perjury. Caleb vanished, his assets frozen. The final enemies were out of the shadows, but one battle remained. The one Zarya's body was preparing for silently. Because as she clutched her belly that night, whispering to the child within, she felt it. Real labor. This time, it was real. Chapter 11. Zarya gripped the side of the bed as another wave of pain slammed through her like fire. Her nails dug into the wood. Her breath came fast and shallow. "Breathe," Dr. Imani said gently, holding her hand. "You're doing great." "I can't," Zarya gasped, sweat pouring down her face. "It's too much." Roman was at her other side, eyes dark with terror and awe. His hand gripped hers, refusing to let go. "You can," he whispered, forehead pressed to hers. "Unaweza, mpenzi, you're the strongest person I've ever known." Zarya cried out again, her body arching with the next contraction. She felt the baby descending. Pressure, fire, urgency. It was time. Roman looked at Dr. Imani, voice hoarse. "She's hurting too much." "She's in transition," the doctor said. "It's time to push." Zarya shook her head, her body trembling. "Roman," he cupped her face, eyes locked on hers. "Nitakushikilia kila sekunde. I'm not leaving." Her vision blurred, but she managed a shaky smile. "Then don't flinch when I scream," he smirked. "I've heard you scream before." She let out a short, breathless laugh, and then the pain returned with vengeance. "Push, Zarya," Imani called. "Sasa, push." She pushed. Once, twice, 3 times. Roman held her hand so tightly she thought their bones might fuse. She screamed, crying out not just from pain, but from power. And then, a sound. The sound, a cry. Thin, new, alive. And the world stood still. "It's a boy," Dr. Imani said through a smile. Zarya collapsed back onto the pillows, shaking, sobbing. Roman stood frozen beside her, his hand over his mouth, eyes locked on the tiny, wrinkled, wailing life in Imani's arms. Their son. Their legacy. Imani placed the baby gently on Zarya's chest. He was warm. Perfect. His tiny fingers reached for nothing and everything. Zarya stared at him, speechless. Then she whispered in trembling Swahili, Karibu duniani mwanangu, nitakulinda hadi pumzi yangu ya mwisho. Welcome to the world, my child. I will protect you until my last breath. Roman slowly knelt at the edge of the bed, one hand on her leg, the other brushing the baby's tiny head. His voice was thick. Hez. Beautiful. Zarya looked at him, tears streaming. We made him. From pain, from fire, from love. Roman nodded, resting his forehead against her thigh. Asante, for not giving up on me, on us. Hours later, the baby slept between them. Martha sat in a chair nearby, humming a Kikuyu lullaby softly as she watched her grandson. Zarya leaned into Roman's side, exhausted but glowing. We need to name him, she whispered. Roman smiled. You choose. No, she said, stroking the baby's soft cheek. Tutamchagwa pamoja. We will choose together. Roman thought for a moment, then said, Amani. Zarya blinked. Peace. He looked at her. Because that's what he brought me. Zarya kissed Roman's hand. Amani vale. Then, turning to the baby, she whispered again, Amani. Mwanangu wa kwanza, moyo wa baba yako, nuru ya maisha yangu. My firstborn, the light of my life. That night, as the moon rose over the desert, Roman stood at the window, their son sleeping in his arms. Zarya lay in bed, watching him. He looked like a man reborn. No longer broken, no longer running, just home. Chapter 12. Roman Vale had never been afraid of holding power. But nothing in his life, not the companies, not the money, not the wars had fought, had prepared him for the moment he cradled his newborn son against his chest and felt his heartbeat sync with something so fragile, so innocent, so entirely his. Amani. The name echoed in his mind like a vow. This tiny creature, with his mother's soft skin and Roman's jawline, had already made him a different man. One he didn't fully recognize, one he wasn't sure he deserved to become. He wasn't afraid of love anymore. He was afraid of losing it. Zarya sat propped up in bed, recovering more slowly than she expected. The delivery had taken everything out of her, physically, emotionally, spiritually. But every time she looked at Amani, something inside her healed. Her body ached, her mind was tired, but her heart, it was whole. She had Roman, she had her mother, and now she had her son. She caught Roman staring at the baby in a daze one morning, still in his pajamas, hair a mess, bottle in one hand, burp cloth in the other. She laughed softly. Are you okay? Roman blinked. He stared at me for 5 straight minutes. Didn't blink. I think he knows all my secrets. Zarya grinned. He's judging your diaper technique. Roman raised a brow. I'll have you know, I watched 3 videos. I'm now semi-certified in emergency swaddling. Your boardroom rivals would be proud. Don't tempt me, he muttered. I'll start issuing quarterly reports on bowel movements. By the end of the week, the Vale estate had become quiet again. No threats, no news, no Talia, no Caleb. For once it felt like peace was not just a pause, but a beginning. They had already made plans to move from the mountain compound back to a secure villa near the coast, somewhere Zarya could raise Amani surrounded by sunlight, not security teams. But peace has a way of drawing shadows. And just when they thought it was over, it began again. The first sign was small, a package delivered with no return label, addressed to Roman's old alias. Inside, a single rattle, broken. The second was a leak in the media, a forged medical document stating Roman's mental health had declined and he was unfit to raise a child. The third was a man caught scaling the wall of the property. When the guards cornered him, he whispered something chilling. She never lost. She just waited. Roman stormed into the surveillance room that night, fury in every step. She's still out there, he said, his voice low and violent. Talia. Graham nodded grimly. She has nothing left but revenge. Roman's jaw flexed. And shall come for what she thinks is mine. Zarya stood behind him, silent. Then she said, she won't win. Roman turned to her. You should go. Take the baby. Disappear. No, she said firmly. We end this. Together. Roman stared at her, then nodded, because the woman in front of him wasn't the girl who had signed a surrogate contract out of desperation. She was his equal, his partner, the mother of his child, and together they would fight one last time. Chapter 13. Talia Hart had been many things in Roman Vale's life. His first love, his worst betrayal, and now, his final threat. After months in hiding, she had returned from the shadows with fire in her eyes and venom in her smile. She didn't want money anymore. She didn't want the company. She wanted vengeance. And she would burn everything Roman loved to the ground to get it. The trap was simple. a press gala for Vale International's new medical technology division. High profile, well covered, the kind of event someone like Talia wouldn't be able to resist. Roman stood before the mirror in his private suite, adjusting the cufflinks Zarya had given him the night before Amani was born. He looked tired, older, hardened, but behind his eyes there was something new, purpose. Zarya entered quietly, wearing a sleek navy blue gown that hugged her body without drawing too much attention. She looked regal, confident, a far cry from the woman who once cried herself to sleep in a cramped flat for a job shed lost. She held Amani in her arms, swaying gently as he slept against her chest. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Roman asked, stepping forward. Zarya nodded. "She wants to humiliate you. I'll be there to remind her she failed." He kissed her gently. "If anything happens, it won't," she whispered. "Not this time." The gala was held at a private venue on the Dubai Marina. Lights, cameras, laughter that felt too polished to be real. Roman arrived hand in hand with Zarya, bodyguards flanking them on either side. Amani was back at the estate with Martha and Amani, protected, hidden. They were prepared for anything, or so they thought. Talia arrived in a silk-red dress and a confidence so loud it silenced the room. The moment she entered, Roman's jaw locked. Zarya's fingers tightened around his. She strolled toward them like a queen reclaiming a throne. "Well," Talia said, her voice saccharine, "isn't this cozy?" Roman stepped forward. "You've already lost. You just haven't accepted it yet." Talia's lips curled. "You always underestimated me, and you always overplayed your hand." She laughed. "I'm not here for small talk. I'm here for my son." The room fell silent. Zarya blinked. "You're what?" Talia turned to the press. "You all remember my statement, don't you? That I was pregnant, that I lost the baby? It wasn't a lie, it was a threat, and now it's a truth." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Roman's face turned to stone. "Enough." But Zarya stepped forward and took the microphone from the podium nearby. "No," everyone turned to her. Zarya's voice was calm, steady, fierce. "My name is Zarya Nyambura. I am the legal and biological mother of Amani Vale. I signed the contract. I carried the pregnancy. I almost died delivering him, and I have the scars to prove it." Her voice rose. "Talia Hart has no claim, no connection, and no right." She turned to Talia, fire in her eyes. "You lost the moment I didn't break." Talia's face twisted. She lunged. A flash of silver, a blade hidden in her clutch. Screams rang out, but Roman moved first. Stepping between them, catching her wrist mid-swing. Guards rushed in. Talia screamed as she was dragged to the floor, the blade falling from her hand. Roman stood over her, breathing hard. "You were right," he said quietly. "You were always more dangerous than me," she hissed. "He should have been mine." Roman turned to look at Zarya, standing tall, strong, unshaken. He was always hers. That night, after Talia was officially charged and taken away, Roman and Zarya returned home to a sleeping Amani. The house was silent, safe. Zarya curled into Roman's side, head on his chest, hand over his heart. "You really think it's over?" she asked. Roman kissed her temple. "I think it's finally beginning." Chapter 14. The air was still. Not from fear, not from war, but from something rare and sacred. Peace. For the first time in months, Roman Vale woke up without bracing for danger. No threats, no betrayals, no knives hidden in silk clutches, just soft morning light spilling across the bed, and the quiet sound of Zarya humming as she rocked Amani near the open window. Their home, their real home now, sat perched on the cliffs above the sea. Not a fortress, not a hideout, a sanctuary. Roman stretched, shirtless, muscles sore but satisfied. Not from fighting, from living, from being loved. He rose, walked over, and wrapped his arms around Zarya from behind. She leaned into him immediately. "He's growing so fast," she whispered, staring down at Amani. "I feel like I blinked, and suddenly he doesn't fit in my arms." Roman kissed her temple. "Hell always fit in mine," she laughed softly. "He's going to be taller than you. Impossible." "You're right," she smirked. "He's already smarter." Roman growled playfully and kissed her neck. "Marry me," he said again, even though had already asked a dozen times. She rolled her eyes. "We're already engaged. Not good enough." "Why the rush?" He turned her toward him, one hand sliding gently over her waist. "Because for the first time in my life, I want forever to start now." The wedding was private, just the way they wanted it. Held on the terrace overlooking the sea, with Martha holding Amani in a white cotton wrap, and Graham acting as Roman's silent, stone-faced best man. Zarya wore ivory silk, barefoot, her hair flowing in soft waves down her back. Roman wore a dark tailored suit, a ring already resting in his palm like a promise made flesh. They stood facing each other under a white arch, soft music playing from a single violin nearby. No crowd, no cameras, just truth. Roman took her hands in his and spoke, voice low and full of gravel. "I don't know how to love the right way," he said. "I don't know how to be gentle with anything except you, but I swear, every breath I have left belongs to you." Zarya blinked fast as tears welled in her eyes. "You didn't save me, Roman. You saw me, and that changed everything. I was never meant to survive this world alone. I was meant to survive it with you." He slipped the ring onto her finger. She slipped his on next, and then they kissed. Slow, soft, devastating. It wasn't the kiss of a new beginning. It was the kiss of two souls finally coming home. That night, they danced barefoot in their living room. Amani slept peacefully in the nursery. Martha had fallen asleep in the armchair with a cup of tea in her hand. Zarya moved in Roman's arms like she belonged there, and for the first time she believed it. "I wish my father could see this," she whispered against his chest. Roman paused. "Do you want to find him?" She shook her head. "No, I want to leave the past buried." Roman nodded. "Then we bury it together. But peace always has a price, and sometimes the past doesn't stay buried." 2 weeks later, Zarya received a call from Nairobi. It was unexpected, routine at first, but the voice on the other end wasn't routine. It was male, gruff. "I believe we may be related," the man said. "Your mother and I, we share a father." Zarya froze. Roman walked in just as the phone slipped from her hand. "What is it?" he asked. Zarya turned slowly, her expression unreadable. "I think I have a brother." Chapter 15. The man's name was Elias. He claimed to be Zarya's half-brother, born from a second marriage their father had in secret. He had tracked them down through a medical database after seeing the articles about the mystery surrogate who married Roman Vale. Zarya sat frozen in the villa's private courtyard, the sea wind brushing her face, but she felt nothing. Martha sat beside her, stunned. "I never told you about him," Martha said softly, "because I didn't know he existed either. I thought, your father left only us behind." Zarya's chest tightened. So many parts of her life had been built on the absence of men, her father, Roman, once, even her own sense of self. Now here was someone else bound to her by blood, but not by choice. Roman found her an hour later. He didn't say anything, just knelt beside her chair and placed Amani in her arms. "I don't care if you want to meet him or not," Roman said, "but you'll never face it alone. Not ever again." Zarya looked down at her son, then at the man who had never abandoned her, not when it mattered. "I want to meet him," she whispered, "but only if you're there." Roman kissed her forehead. "Always." The meeting was quiet. Elias arrived at a small private cafe outside the city, wearing worn jeans and an expression that mirrored Zarya's in a way she couldn't deny. They didn't hug, but when they sat across from one another, the silence was deep and heavy and oddly comforting. "I didn't come to take anything," Elias said. "I just wanted to know where I came from. And now, I know." Zarya studied him. "Do you have a family?" He hesitated. "I did, until last year. Lost my wife, my daughter's 6. She doesn't understand why her mom's gone." Zarya swallowed thickly. "I'm sorry." Elias gave a sad smile. "You've built something beautiful, Zarya. You've survived things I never could have imagined." She looked over at Roman, who was sitting just within view, watching protectively from a nearby table. "I didn't do it alone," she said. Elias reached across the table. "Neither will I. Not anymore." A few days later, Zarya invited Elias and his daughter to the villa. Martha wept when she held the little girl. And Roman. Well, Roman surprised everyone by lifting the child onto his shoulders and showing her the indoor library that Amani would grow up in. Zarya watched from the hallway, and she smiled. For the first time in her life, everything had found its place. That night, Zarya stood by the window watching the stars. Roman wrapped his arms around her from behind. "Amani's asleep?" "Snoring," she whispered, smiling. Roman nuzzled her neck. "So what now?" Zarya turned in his arms. "Now we live. No more running, no more fear, no more enemies." Zarya smiled. "Only family." Roman kissed her slowly, the kind of kiss that said we survived. And then he whispered against her lips. "Forever, Zarya Vale, no contracts, no lies, just us," she whispered back. "Forever, epilogue." 4 years later, Dubai, Vale Estate by the sea. Amani Vale sprinted across the courtyard, his tiny feet slapping the warm stone as he shouted, "I'm faster than lightning!" Roman stood by the fountain, arms crossed, watching his son with a smirk tugging at his mouth. "You're fast, but not faster than me." Amani skidded to a stop and turned, hands on his hips. "Daddy, you're not even running," Roman chuckled. "Exactly." From the arched veranda, Zarya leaned against a column, smiling. Her belly was round beneath her sundress, a soft breeze teasing her curls. She was glowing, again. "Let him win, Roman," she called, her voice rich with laughter. "He's 4. And you're recovering from a strained ego last time he beat you in chess." Roman raised his brows. "He cheated. He's 4. He looked me in the eye and sacrificed my queen like a seasoned villain." Amani puffed his chest. "Mama says I get that from you." Zarya laughed and stepped down into the sunlit courtyard. Amani ran to her and wrapped his arms around her belly. "Hi, baby," he whispered to the bump. "I think you're going to be a girl." Zarya smoothed his hair. "Well, find out soon enough." Roman stepped behind her and placed a hand on her waist. His other hand rested on Amani's back. This, right here, was what he never thought he would have. Not the empire, not the fortune. Family, love, legacy. Inside the house, Elias and his daughter, Leah, helped Martha in the kitchen. The smell of cinnamon, roasted lamb, and soft bread filled the air. Graham sat reading by the window, now a trusted friend and honorary uncle to both children. The estate was no longer just a fortress. It was home. That night, as the sky turned deep navy and the stars bloomed one by one, Roman and Zarya stood at the edge of the cliff, watching the sea. "I used to think peace was boring," Roman murmured. Zarya leaned into him. "And now I think it's the greatest luxury in the world." She reached for his hand. "The baby's due in 2 weeks. Boy or girl, doesn't matter. Name?" She smiled. "I was thinking Hope, no matter what." Roman pulled her close and pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Then Hope Vale it is." As the wind swept around them and ominous laughter echoed through the stone halls behind them, Zarya closed her eyes. From pain they had built love, from betrayal they had chosen trust, and from blood they had created life. The end. Thank you so much for being part of this emotional journey. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Your support, your love, your time. It means everything. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. As always, see you in the next one. Love, Maria.